You're being recorded. Just in case.
Everything we say is family friendly.
Inshallah.
Alright, so.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah. I can see your hands.
Alhamdulillah.
That was the quickest, bro. Yesterday
quick.
It took a fat minute.
Yeah, I know. Alright, bro. Send everyone that link, okay? The same people that you sent yesterday, and to Jaffer too.
What about, like, for example, prayers, or like even when you do like worship prayers, maybe you recite Ayatul Kursi, for example, or recite like the other ayahs. They're not.
I'm just gonna send it to everybody.
So like, how do you? What's like
Everybody
the
that knows.
justification there? This is in regards to
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, inshallah, after the lecture there will be Q&A session. If you have any questions, inshallah, you can ask Maulana. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Now I request Brother Jafar for non-fluent, inshallah. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
प्यारे दिल विच सखीदा वसा ले आए, प्यारे दिल विच सखीदा वसा ले आए, सर ज़ाहरा दे दर ते झुका ले आए, अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली। प्यार दिल विच सखीदा वसा ले आए, प्यार दिल विच सखीदा वसा ले आए, सर ज़ाहरा दे दर ते झुका ले आए, अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली।
नारे हैदरी
जाने या अली। सखी दे खजाने कदी मुक नहीं हो सकदे, अली दे दीवाने कदी लुक नहीं हो सकदे, सखी दे खजाने कदी मुक नहीं हो सकदे, अली दे दीवाने कदी लुक नहीं हो सकदे, हैर हैर अगे कदी झुक नहीं हो सकदे, अली अली करण तो रुक नहीं हो सकदे, ओदी फौज विच नाम लिखा ले आए, ओदी फौज विच नाम लिखा ले आए, असां बहलोल संग दिल ला ले आए, अगो अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली। दिलकश होसी में राज दी कहानी, करके जरूरी गल्लां रत है लंगानी, किसे गल दी भी मैनू नहीं हो परेशानी, होसी मेहमान दी भी पूरी मेजबानी, कम अपना मैं सारा मुका ले आए, कम अपना मैं सारा मुका ले आए, मैं नबी नू अरश ते बुला
मौला ले आए अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली नारा हैदरी सखीदा वसाल आए प्यार दिल विच सखीदा वसाल आए सर ज़हरा दे दर ते झुका ले आए अगो जाने या अली अगो जाने या अली दिल पड़े अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद
MashaAllah. Now I request Sayyid Mohammedhassan Alsheraa for his third lecture on the topic the importance of Wilayat in Islam. Salawat Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Nara Takbir!
Allahu Akbar.
Nara Risalah!
Ya Rasulullah.
Nara Haidari!
Ya Ali. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفضل الذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيبي إله العالمين أبا القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المظلومين المنتجبين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد يقول الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم تراهم ركعا سجدا يبتغون فضلا من الله ورضوانه سيماهم في وجوههم من أثر السجود آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Identity is crucial in self-awareness for every human being. No one wants to live their life without having a stable foundation regarding who they are and how they identify themselves. That being said, it is not sufficient to stop at a name. When you are told to identify yourself, traditionally you are told to give your name. For example, my name is Mohammedhassan, but there were other Mohammedassans before me. That is not exclusive to me. In the business world, you identify yourself with your occupation. So for example, Mohammedhassan / banker. Oftentimes they might put the age. So let's say 20 this, 30 that. These are not exclusive to you. You do not have exclusivity to neither your name nor your occupation, as there are other bankers or teachers, and other people have that age of yours. What makes you exclusive is your identity with your Lord. That is pure exclusivity. For indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala identifies with the human being. If you ever want a personal connection that is unlike any other, your Lord has that connection with you. Allah does not see you like a number. You're not a number. Businesses will see you like a number. You're just an associate. But Allah sees you as His very creation. And in the heart of His creation is the haram of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq has the lovely hadith in which he states, Al-qalbu haramullah. Allahu Akbar. The heart is the sanctuary of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And do not let anyone enter the haram of Allah except that which pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is there anything that pleases Rabbul Alameen? Then the Wilayat of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. This, insha'Allah ta'ala, we will use to identify ourselves as Muslimin, followers of the Wilayah of the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt. The biggest misunderstanding that is presented in regards to our identity as Shia, my dear respected brothers and sisters, I would like to be very frank and not beat around the bush in the following misunderstandings and misconceptions. If you could number a few misconceptions and accusations, there are probably a handful. That the Shia, number one, are not truthful, for they always engage in the act of taqiyya. Number two, they engage in ma'tam, which are actions that were never found in the life of the Prophet. But the most popular accusation, these are all petty, apathetic. The most powerful in the sense of the one that carries with it evidence and analyses from the opposition, from Shia-phobes, which is another term these days. It used to only be Islamophobes, now it's Shia-phobes, unfortunately, is the following. That the Shia of Ahlul Bayt do not respect, nor do they revere the Sahaba of the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The companions of the Holy Prophet of Islam are in the tens of thousands. They cross 120,000 Sahabi companion. The claim is that the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia, do not respect nor do they revere the companions. They curse the companions. Sabbu Sahaba. They do not like all of the companions. We have to first critique the accusation. Everyone is entitled to have their own opinion. But your opinion, you do not have a right to have a false opinion after knowing the truth. No one has the right to make false judgments given they've received the truth. You know the reality, why do you insist on lying? The Shia do not hate the Sahaba, nor do they curse the Sahaba. When you use the blanket term as-Sahabatu, alif lam like that, you mean every single companion? Inna Amir al-Mu'mineen is a Sahabi. The Ahlul Bayt are all Sahaba, the Ahlul Kisa are Sahaba. We do not despise the Sahaba. The argument will be met part of the way. Okay, not all of them, just the Ahlul Bayt. What about Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, Abu Dhal al-Ghufari, Maytham, all of them, Malik al-Ashtar, these are all companions. No, those were the Shia-centric companions of the Holy Prophet. Those are the only ones we don't like. We like, and the others we do not like. What about the Shuhada that died in Badr, that died in the way of Allah, those that died in Uhud, Khandaq, Khaybar? Those are all upright companions in our opinions. So when you say that the Shia despise the Sahaba, this is a petty argument coming from a place of jahal, of ignorance. You, who claims to be a learned individual, who studied the works, the reports, the seerah, you've concluded with all of your ilm, mashallah, that we hate the companions. Where do you find your reasoning? Furthermore, who is a Sahabi? Our opinion with regards to the Holy Prophet and his companions is of that of the Quran. Nothing more, nothing less. Do you want the opinion of the followers of Ahlul Bayt? Open a book. Maybe you haven't read it. It's called the Quran al-Kareem. You will find the verses that describe how, some people like that, how we revere the companions of the Holy Prophet. There is a concept, however, if we are being told, because two can play at that game, if we are being told we do not revere the companions, then explain to me how you not but revere every single Sahabi irrespective of moral behavior, of character, and of decision making. There's a concept known as adalatul Sahaba, the integrity of the companions. And because of our rejection of this concept, we have been called haters of the Sahaba. What is the concept of adalatul Sahaba? The result of rejecting this concept made us receive the following beautiful titles: Kuffar, Rawafid, Zanadiqa, and so forth. The list goes on. Adalatul Sahaba literally translates to the justice or the integrity of the companions, which means, in a nutshell, it is homogeneous almost to the concept of imamah, in that every single Sahabi, companion of the Holy Prophet of Islam, can never deliberately sin. Every single hadith, if found returning back to them, given that the chain is reliable, going back to any companion is a sahih hadith, because lying is haram, and all of the Sahaba have integrity according to this concept. Is this concept found in the Holy Quran or in the mutually accepted traditions, or no? If it is, as some might claim, what are the ayat that are presented to justify such a concept? Every single companion, over 120,000, as being udul. An adil individual is someone that is just, meaning they will never deliberately sin. It's impossible. They are ma'sumun to that degree. And the irony of all ironies is rejecting 14 ma'sumin, but accepting 120,000 ma'sumin all of a sudden. That they will never deliberately sin, but they can err and make mistakes. This is homogeneous to the concept of imamah. How? Because our view of the imams of Ahlul Bayt is that they can never sin, nor can they make mistakes. But in the concept of Adatul Sahaba, the companions can make mistakes, but they will never deliberately sin. And if they do deliberately, not deliberately sin, but rather make a mistake, then this was due to poor judgment. They made a decision using their reasoning, their rationale, which is called what in Islamic jurisprudence? It's called ijtihad. They made their own ijtihad. They concluded that this is an act that is decent. I made a mistake, so it's never a sin because it was done out of ignorance. And likewise in Islamic fiqh, if you made a mistake, today I had a live stream on Insta Ahlul Bayt. I do it too, by the way, every single day. Shameless plug. If you go on Insta Ahlul Bayt on Instagram, we do a live stream at Brother Amir's residence, alhamdulillah, at 3 p.m. Someone asked, I made a mistake, I accidentally drank water while fasting. Do I have to repeat? Do I this? No, if it was an accident, Allah will not hold you accountable for something that was an accident. If you did it muta'ammid, if you were deliberate, you knew of the ruling, yet you still decided to do it anyways, then you have to repeat and pay kafara. But if it was an accident, it's okay, there's no sin. That is why, due to this concept, you will have the following preposterous scenario. Ali radiallahu an fought Muawiyah radiallahu an. In this situation, both of them are Sahaba, so they never made a mistake, even though blood was shed and people were killed, and another Sahabi, Ammar bin Yasir, was killed. Muawiyah was simply wrong. He used his ijtihad, because he's a Sahabi, he used his ijtihad and concluded that Ali ibn Abi Talib had to be killed. I don't hate him. So it wasn't out of malign, malicious intent. He was not evil in that regard. He just ijtahida fa'akhta. So when you find the fourth Imam of Ahlul Bayt, you become a mujtahid, ayatullah al-uzma. But when you question the integrity of the first three khulafa, you become a rafidi and a murtaziq. Where is the logic in that regard? Anyways, the following concept, does it have a bearing in the traditions of the Holy Prophet, Sahih Hadith, or the Holy Quran? If so, as claimed, where are the verses and where are the references? The first verse that is presented to support such a concept is the following. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The Holy Prophet is the messenger of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ, and those who are amongst him. أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ, they are firm against the disbelievers. رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنُهُمْ, merciful among one another. تَرَاهُمْ, you will find them رُكَّعًا سُجَّدًا, bowing, prostrating, يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانَهُ, that they aspire to find the peace from their Lord and the salvation from Allah. سِيمَاهُمْ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ, that the signs of ibad and worship is on their face. مِنْ أَثَرِ السُّجُودِ, from how much they are doing prostration. This concept, given the ayah, I would agree. I agree. All the companions, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ, this is a'am, this is wide, meaning everyone who is alongside the Holy Prophet. This leads to a dilemma as a Shi'i, that we revere individuals who were along with the Holy Prophet, but we do not revere individuals who were also alongside the Holy Prophet, with emphasis, and there is no shame behind recognizing this as a Shi'i, the caliphate of the first three khulafa. We do not recognize the legitimacy of those. How can you make such a judgment and assertion if the ayah said, وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ? طيب, those three first khulafa, Abu Bakr wa Umar wa Uthman, were they not with Rasulullah? Yes, they were. One of them was with the Prophet in the event of the cave. Some of them were muhajirun. In fact, all of them were muhajirun. How can you claim to despise these companions if the ayah of the Quran says that رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ تَرَاهُمْ رُكَّعًا سُجَّدًا يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانًا سِيمَاهُمْ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ مِنْ أَثَرِ السُّجُودِ. I would agree. We would be in trouble had the ayah not continued and said something else. What did it say? وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Allah has promised الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who believed and did good. What did they receive? مِنْهُمْ. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْهُمْ, from them, not all of them, from them, مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا, forgiveness and a great reward. Can you get into heaven without having forgiveness or a great ajr? You can't. Why did Allah say from them? He didn't say وَعَدَهُمَ اللَّهُ وَعَدَهُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. He even said مِنْهُمْ, from amongst them. So the mawdu' was a'am in the beginning, الَّذِينَ مَعَهُ. So the broad concept of all those with the Holy Prophet, they are subject to Jannah all of a sudden. I agree. But the ayah continued and it said, but from amongst them. It could have said all of them. From them. So not all of them, they will receive maghfiratan wa ajran azima. Can you get into Jannah without maghfirah and ajr? No. So not all of them are subject to maghfirah and ajr, because the ayah said minhum, from them, not all of them.
MashaAllah.
Which other verses also presented? Chapter 9, verse 100, Surah At-Tawbah. Get your thinking caps on. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضَوْا عَنْهُ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم. MashaAllah, the verses of the Quran are beautiful, subhanallah. والسابقون الأولون, the first forerunners from the muhajirin, those who migrated, والأنصار, those who helped in Medina, and those who followed them with good conduct, والذين تبعوهم بإحسان. God is pleased with them. That's where we get رضي الله عنه from. رضي الله عنهم وَرَضَوْا عَنْهُ, and they are pleased with Allah, and Allah has promised for them Jannat, heavens, beneath which rivers flow, and that is the great victory. There we go. The Sabiqun, the forerunners, the first forerunners who migrated with Rasulullah, and all of the Ansar, and who else? The Tabi'un. So you hear about the Tabi'un, such as Hassan al-Basri and all these individuals who are not Sahaba, but they came after Islam shortly, and they were Muslims. These are called the Tabi'un. God is pleased with them, وَالَّذِينَ تَبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ, and they are pleased with Allah. One issue presenting this ayah to confirm the concept of the integrity of the companions, all of them being udud, is that the Tabi'un include us. We also follow the Holy Prophet bi-ihsan. Is everyone who's ever lived as a Muslim guaranteed Jannah? No, there's always, what's the point of Yawm al-Qiyamah at that point? There are Muslims who are oppressive. I mean, Yazid claimed to be a Muslim, astaghfirullah, but he was far from Islam. The Daesh, Daesh, and Ma'ish, all of these horrible, ruthless individuals and their movements, they all claim Islam. They claim to be tabi'in of Islam. But are they going to receive Islam and the ajr of Islam at the end of the day? No, they won't. This cannot be used to support that every single person who fits in the following category is deserving of heaven all of a sudden. Furthermore, if that was the case, it says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ. Not all the companions were sabiqun. Awwalun. Muawiyah was from the event of Fatih Mecca in the 8th year. He never did hijrah, never was an Ansari. In fact, fought against Islam for a time period. Him and his father, and his son, and his grandson, and his mother, and his uncle, subhanallah. In any case, this individual wasn't. Where does he fit in the category? We have to see where the sabiqun are. Okay, members from the first three khulafa were part of the sabiqun, by the way. How can you claim not to revere them if the Quran honored them? They get jannat, tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, khalidina fiha. How do we not respect such individuals? We'll tell that to Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh. Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh was an individual who was the cousin of the Prophet. Before Islam, he was a muwahhid hanif. So he could have been drinking alcohol for all we know, but the man still was on the millah of Ibrahim. He is the brother-in-law of Rasulullah. Rasulullah married his sister Zaynab bin Jahsh, and he did hijrah in the beginning of Islam. He's a sabiq awwal. There were two hijrahs in Islam, to Medina and towards the first one, Habasha, Ethiopia. Hassan. Who attended the hijrah of Ethiopia? Two interesting individuals, Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh and Ja'far ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. If ever you want to see a superhero, look no further than Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. This man, the brother of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the older brother by 10 years, was genuinely a superhero. You will not find someone like him. How Rasulullah loved him. In the 7th year after Hijrah, the Muslimin conquered Khaybar finally. And Khaybar took days to conquer. It was one of the most difficult battles for Rasulullah. So when they beat the Jews at the time who were in animosity with Islam and finally conquered Khaybar through the support of Amir al-Mu'mineen, of course, Rasulullah came back to Medina very happy because finally they did it. When he returned, he ran into Ja'far al-Tayyar, who just came back from Habasha after 7 years. He made the following announcement: I don't know what to be more happy about, the conquest of Khaybar or the return of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. How much Rasulullah loved him. Who also accompanied Ja'far? This guy, Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh. Why do we mention him? Because he ticks all the boxes. Sabiq awwal, from the first. Why is there a different category? Because in the early years of Islam, when you became a Muslim, you were really respected by Allah, revered by Allah, because you had every excuse not to be. And so Allah makes that distinction, sabiqun, awwalun, tabi'een. Why? Because the sabiqun are not like the muhajirin, and those are not like the ansar, and they are not like the tabi'een, because it was little in that day, and you still became a Muslim. So Allah recognizes that group. Ubaydullah ibn Jahsh goes to Ethiopia, commits irtidad and heresy, decides to leave Islam. He had everything going for him. He found a lady and he was into her, and she said, leave this Islam, become a Christian, then I will be with you. And he left Islam. He fits all the boxes. Is he going to go to heaven because the ayah fits his description? No, it doesn't. It's not about how you began, it's about how you finish later on. And the verse of the Holy Quran, this one right here, chapter 9, verse 100, does not give a full blanket reverence to every single individual that lived in the life of the Holy Prophet in that manner as deserving of Jannah. Nowhere does it mention any of that. This being said, we have to now define what does it mean to be a Sahabi. Sahada, Sahabi, Suhbah. These variations of the word are found over 90 times in the Holy Quran. Not one of them carry that meaning of Adalatul Sahaba. Not one of them. In the works of Sunni scholarship, we do find the differentiating opinions as to how to identify companions. Ibn al-Athir, in his work Usadul Ghaba fi Ma'rifat al-Sahaba, a very prominent scholar of Sunni scholarship, he lists the multiple opinions from different scholars as to how a person can be identified as a Sahabi. How someone can be called a Sahabi and have all of these qualities match them, so that they will never go to nar, they can never deliberately sin, and they can only make mistakes, but those are not sins. How a person can be qualified for that? He lists the following. The first opinion is Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. Sa'id bin Musayyib was a scholar. He's a tabi'i, not a sahabi. Sa'id bin Musayyib said, in order to become a sahabi of the Holy Prophet, you have to have accompanied the Holy Prophet for 1 or 2 years and participated with him in 1 or 2 wars. Why 1 or 2 years exactly? Why not 5 months? Why 1 or 2 wars? Why not just be there and watch? Who gives this criteria as to how to become a Sahabi? Who makes this up? The Quran? Why do you decide to make it 1 or 2 years? Why not just 3 months? How come? Where do you get these numbers? That's how it's presented in order to identify and be classified as a Sahabi. The next opinion that is given is the opinion of Al-Waqidi. in Ibn al-Athir's أسد الغابة في معرفة الصحابة, he mentions the opinions of the scholars. The first we mentioned was with regards to this opinion. The second is al-Waqidi's opinion. He states that in order to be called a Sahabi, you have to have spent 1 hour with the Holy Prophet. That's it. Just 1 hour. So there's already a difference of opinion. Sa'id bin Musayyib says 1 or 2 years. Al-Waqidi says just 1 hour. Spend 1 hour with the Holy Prophet, you become a Sahabi all of a sudden. 1 hour then. Why not 30 minutes? Nope, 1 hour is not enough. For the first opinion, why not 1 year? Nope, it has to be 1 or 2 years and 1 or 2 years. Okay, who comes with these rules? Who makes up these rules? The third opinion is Ahmad bin Hanbal, the Imam of the Hanbali school of thought. The Imam, generally for the Wahhabi and Salafi worldview, he states, no, not 1 or 2 years. You want to become Sahabi? Forget that. Not 1 hour. Just look at him and you become a Sahabi. Just look at him and that's enough to become Sahabi. Look at the Prophet, khalas, Sahabi, Adil, never go to hell, you will never deliberately sin, you can only make mistakes, and if you make a very bizarre mistake, like fight the Imam of your time, اجتهد فأخطأ. Just look at him. The last opinion is the most, with all due respect, because these are legal opinions from other worldviews. But two can play that game if you're going to blame us for coming up with interpretations that are not found in the Quran, which they definitely are, then where do you come up with the following opinion? Bukhari, in Sahih al-Bukhari, the man Bukhari himself says, you want to become a Sahabi? You don't even need to see the Holy Prophet. Just be near him and you're a Sahabi. Blind people can become Sahaba. People who just see him become Sahaba, and that's it. He mentions in أسد الغابة في معرفة الصحابة بابن الأثير, Ibn Hazm's opinion, another scholar, that in order to become Sahabi, you also can just look at the Prophet's dead body, and that's it. You never saw the Prophet in your life, you never met, you never heard him, but on the day of his death, you just look at him, khalas, you become Sahabi all of a sudden. He even includes min al-insi wal-jinn. But jinn also can become Sahaba. What is this? What are the repercussions when you make so many people Sahaba? If ever there is a hadith that leads back to any one of these, it's Sahih hadith all of a sudden, because a Sahabi can never lie. So if ever we found a chain of narrators, given that the chain is Sahih, if it ends to any companion, hey, they could have just saw him when he was dead, khalas, they're Sahabi all of a sudden, and that hadith is Sahih. And this is a problem because you end up with really bizarre traditions of people who never saw the Prophet making hadith. For example, on the 10th of Muharram, one of the ahadith found in Bukhari, narrated by Abu Hurairah, that دخل رسول الله المدينة عشر محرم, and he began seeing the Jews fasting, and he says, أنا أحق بموسى, I have more rights on Musa than you do, let's fast on this day. Abu Hurairah entered Medina in the 7th year after Hijrah. Where did he come in the first year with the Prophet? The guy was still a mushrik in Yemen. Where was he a Muslim? Why? No, because the chain is Sahih leading back to him, and he's a Sahabi. But he wasn't there in the event of Hijrah. But how do you justify that? He's a Sahabi, be quiet. No, you be quiet. Use your logic. Use your reasoning here. Have some truth. Find some sidq in your heart. You want to be someone who finds the truth. Don't go to sleep without having the haqiqah with you. And you want to know where to find the truth? علي مع الحق والحق مع علي. That's where the truth is. You end up with these rogue traditions out of nowhere because the hadith, the chain is sahih of narrators back to a companion. Who cares? Study the metin, the context. It doesn't matter if the guy is a companion. What if he's a habitual liar? What if he's an individual that has animosity, venom dripping with vitriol against Al Muhammad? It doesn't matter to you just because they're companion? Why did you make this concept up? Because you heard of an alternative concept called Iman. And in order to face it, you have to come with your own. At the end of the day, we just need Amir al-Mu'mineen on the Day of Judgment. We'll stand behind him proudly, confidently. You stand behind 120,000 Sahaba. We will see who will come up victorious at the end of the day. We stay confident. All we need is just Amir al-Mu'mineen. You can have the thousands of individuals. But understand, on that day, you have to have your reasoning and your justification. Continuing with this, what is the result of not having reverence to some individuals? What happens when I do not give respect, not necessarily give respect, but recognize the reverence of certain Sahaba? Because if they are all udul in that manner, what happens when I reject an adil individual according to Adalatul Sahaba. Ibn Taymiyyah, in his As-Sarim al-Masdud fi Shatim al-Rasul, states that a hadith that I looked for the masdar, I tried to find its origins, it's not found. And he doesn't even list where he got it from. He says, Qala Rasulullah, there will come a group of people after me, they go by the name of the Rawafid. They reject the integrity of the first two khulafa. And when they reject them, kill them. You will be promised heaven. أَلَا فَمَنْ قَتَلَ رَافِضِيًّا فَلَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. Okay, I have to pause. I'll meet you halfway. But why does it say the first two khulafa? Why not the four? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib is not a khalifa at the end of the day, he's a khalifa. Why the first two specifically? Whoever from these rawafid bring down from the first two khulafa are deserving of death. Rafidi, what is a Rafidi? Someone who rejects the legitimacy of the caliphate of the first three khulafa. And we present our reasoning. He says whoever brings down from their status. A Rafidi is someone that does rafid, rejects. Okay, I believe at the end of the day, a vast majority of Muslims are Rafid at that point. Some of those who come from the Sunni scholarship are also Rafidi to a degree. They reject some elements. They say that this decision that was made, angering Lady Fatima, was not the best decision. We reject such decision. Are they Rafid all of a sudden as well? At the end of the day, you have to be a truth seeker. And you can't just come up with traditions all of a sudden. In Al-Kaba'ir of Al-Dhahabi, he states, another alim from that line of scholarship, in his Kaba'ir, he states that فَمَنْ طَعِنَ فِيهِمْ أَوْ سَبَّهُمْ فَقَدْ مَرِقَ مِنَ الدِّينِ وَخَرَجَ مِنْ مِلَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That whoever questions their integrity or goes after them, and he refers to only the first three. Ya akhi, why not the four? What did Amir al-Mu'mineen do? The first three, whoever rejects from them or who attacks them with opinions, they have left Islam and they have left the folds of the Muslimin. Where did that come from? Find it from the Quran. Where did that come from? You always tell me, find your evidence from the Quran. Where is your evidence from the Quran? I don't understand, but when I question some decision making, that I've left Islam, kufr billah is not contingent on questioning the actions of a few individuals. Al-Hassan bin Farhan al-Maliki, a Sunni sheikh in Saudi Arabia, he has a book that is titled As-Suhba was-Sahaba. In it, he lists the interpretations as to how to become an adil individual. He lists 11 opinions. In order to become adil, you have to have the following qualities. You should never do sins that are considered kaba'ir, big sins, because there are bigger sins and smaller sins. No kaba'ir. He lists another opinion that states you can never even do sagha'ir sins, that even the little ones, like lying and whatever. But Amir al-Mu'mineen comes and says that the biggest sin is the one you think is the littlest. The biggest, the small sins, you can never do that in order to become adil. He even mentions Ibn Hajib's opinion in that a person, in order to become adil, should not even do some mubahat. Ibn Hajib is a scholar from that scholarship. He states, as mentioned in As-Suhba was-Sahaba of Shaykh Hassan bin Farhan al-Maliki's work, that some conditions even mean you cannot do certain mubahat. So the action they are doing is not wajib, nor mustahab, nor makruh, nor haram. Mubah. There are certain mubahat that you can't even do in order to be considered adil, like playing soccer. It's not wajib, it's not mustahab, it's not whatever, although some people make it wajib. But it's not this, it's not any of that. They can't even do some actions. Tell me 120,000 individuals never did even certain mubahat. How can you justify all of this? This, where is it found? The Quran, the verses do not fall in line. The ahadith, it becomes a bizarre situation. What is the interpretation of the school of Ahlul Bayt with regards to determining a legitimate Sahabi? Anyone, this is a principle, anyone who did not have animosity to the Holy Prophet or his family is a reliable companion. They can be Sahabi. A Sahabi, what does it mean? It just means companion. And a companion can be a mushrik. Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, he says to the mushrikeen in his prison, he says, Ya sahibaya sijni, أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. He says, "O my companions of the Dajjal, are multiple gods good for you, or the one Allah, the great, the Qahar?" Mushrikun, they worship multiple. He calls them Sahada. Ya Sahibay Sidni. So is a Sahabi automatically someone venerated? No, it's just a term. A mushrik can be a Sahabi. An animal can be a Sahabi. وَلَا تَكُنْ كَصَاحِبِ الْحُوتِ. In the incident of Nabi Yunus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the example, do not become like the companion of the hut, the well. A well can be a Sahabi, for goodness sake. A mushrik can be a Sahabi, for goodness sake. Therefore, if anyone is a Sahabi of the Holy Prophet, does that mean they are automatically venerated to such a high degree? Not necessarily. It's just a term to identify a companion alongside you. With regards to the school of Ahlul Bayt, the upright Sahaba are those who never lied, who do not make a habit of lying, who do not also make a habit of raising a sword against the Holy Prophet's family. In that case, they can be good or bad Sahaba. How do we see if they are reliable? By examining their life. Everyone is due to a thorough examination. If we open your history, and this is where Ilm al-Rijal comes into place, the study of biographies, to conclude and determine whether a hadith is sahih or not, we study the biography. This man, I noticed, sorry to say, he lied. It's very clear. He narrated a hadith that he was present, but when we look at his age, he was 3 years old. How was he present? We find many traditions like this. So we study the lives, and then we conclude that a certain individual is reliable, another individual is not. And the upright companions, we begin with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the greatest of Sahaba. The second best Sahabi was Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, salawatullahi wa sallam. The third greatest Sahabi was Aba Abdullah al-Husayn al-Shaheed. And the best Sahabiyya was Sayyidatu Nisa'i al-Alameen min al-awwaleen wal-akhirin. Then the upright companions of the Holy Prophet who never dared lie, nor steal, nor cheat, nor harm him nor his family, from Salman al-Muhammadi, who became Minna Ahlul Bayt, to Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, who became from an individual that was a destitute bandit to one of the greatest followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, to Ammar bin Yasir, the son of the first shuhada of Islam, eventually a loyal martyr alongside Ali ibn Abi Talib, to eventually you have the companions such as Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, the famous disciple of Lady Zahra. Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, one of her disciples was Jabir. Have you read Hadith al-Kisa? And Jabir bin Abdullah and Fatima. He was present. She would be comfortable to speak with him. An upright companion, Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari. And you have many other companions, from those who died in Badr, those who died in Uhud, and those who died in Khandaq. These are the shuhada of Islam. We consider them reliable. They gave their life for Islam, for goodness sake. So we do not hate the companions. We do not despise them all blanketly. We study their lives and we have truth in our heart. We see a place, a position, a moment in which you disrespected Islam by harming the Prophet or his family, then we will reject you, irrespective of your marital status or your social status. Because God has shown in the Holy Quran that a wife can be a kafira of a prophet. ضرب الله مثلا الذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط. And that an uncle can be a kafir, the uncle of Prophet Abraham. Fathers-in-law can be kuffar, sons can be kuffar. It doesn't matter what tree you come from. There can be a good tree, but one bad apple. But at the same time, there can be a bad tree, but one good apple. At the end of the day, we are all truth seekers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in that regard to finding the truth. And if you want to know the truth, don't look at the person, then judge the truth. Rather look at the truth, then judge the person. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi al-tayyibin al-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, I was made aware from some of the brothers that there has been an interest expressed in having a Q&A session very briefly. I think the topics have been very comprehensive, so inshallah ta'ala, I guess are there notes? Huh? Give them to me, yalla. We'll look through, and if you're interested to ask, thank you Habibi, anything while we're reading some of the notes, then feel free to raise your hand and scream. No, don't scream, but just raise your hand. So very briefly, we'll just examine some of these, and if anyone has any comments to make, please go ahead and raise your hand, inshallah, we'll address them. The first is, what are the criteria for Nabi, Rasul, Ulul Azm, Prophet, and Imam? The criteria is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks His representatives. Allah picks the Nabi, and He picks the Rasul, and He decides who is an Ulul Azm Prophet, and He has